All right. And we are live. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. It is January the 6th. I have been so busy in this new year so far. So I'm looking forward to getting on here and just doing a live stream and just kind of relaxing. Kind of find these live streams relaxing. So, yeah, let's get into it. It's good to see everybody in here. Remember, I always like to see where you guys are listening from. So if you want to throw your general area up, you are more than welcome to do that, and I'll read them off. Scott, get ready to see the Lions. They're coming for KC. Ooh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know if the Lions are going to make it to the Super Bowl. They're pretty banged up on that defense. They looked good last night, but the Vikings are also Sam Darnold's on potato watch all the time. To North Carolina, nice man. I'm gonna go retweet. Hello from the Pashani number 3 mine. I'm going to go retweet my live stream real fast, and then we will get into the updates. I haven't done a live stream since I was on the Duran, so maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. All right, live now. All right, let's go ahead and do this. I hope everybody is doing good in this new year. Let's see. We got American foosball. Yes, sir. I'm a Niners fan, but I'm rooting for Detroit. Just root for the Chiefs, man. It was so funny because in 2018, they were the team that everybody wanted to see win. And now they are the Patriots. And it's kind of fun being on the Patriots side. Sicily. Nice, brother. Nice to see you. San Francisco Bay Area. Nice, man. Hello from Rimini. British Columbia, soon to be the 51st state of the United States of America. So congratulations on your upgrade. I am a Canadian and a U.S. citizen. I have my dual citizenship. So for me, it's kind of like I become like a super citizen. Thank you for the sticker, Tim. I appreciate it. Tripoli, Libya. Iraqi Kurdistan, Canada, Quebec, nice, man. Idaho, nice. Charleston, South Carolina, hello from Finland. Man, we got people from all over. Moscow, nice. Australia. Is it late in Australia? Early? It should be pretty early, I think. Yeah. Or maybe not. I don't know. I have to think about it for too long. Texas. Mahomes' devil magic won't carry him to the Super Bowl. You mean being good? Okay. Devil magic. That's what they call being an MVP superstar GOAT now, I guess. California. Nice, man. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome in. This is episode number 127 of the Calibrated Live show with your host, Scott. I am the one, the only, the intolerable, the ever annoying, but the always present Scott. We have a ton to talk about today. We have a new Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. We also have continued Russian advances. The Russians have not slowed down, have not stopped. We have some new political happenings going on right now that we're going to talk about. A renewed energy war against Russia in particular from Europe and the United States, including but not limited to the pipelines that run through Ukraine. So we are going to get into that a little bit. But as always, I always start off with my always present. I am always present. You can always reach me. I'm always around. I might not be doing live streams 24/7, but all right. Let's go ahead and get over to the map, shall we? I hope that everybody's ready because we have a ton of updates to go over. Palm Beach, Florida, Kenya, Slovenia, California, nice. Just try to speed read some of those. All right. So we will start up in the Kharkov region as we normally do, working north to south, and then we will talk about the Kursk area at the very end of these updates because I'm going to spend more time on that, talk about what's really going on up there. So we have a pretty decent Russian advancement, 6 square miles, which comes out to something like 14 square kilometers, I believe, something in that range. Russian forces have made a pretty significant advance here out of Lazova in the direction, as I talked about, of Barova on a larger scale. You can see the Russians are just sort of sweeping across these fields. This pocket continues to get more and more difficult for the Ukrainians to hold. And as Ukrainian manpower really gets to its bitter end, I would say, the available reserves, so not the guys who are actively engaged, but the ability to plug holes around the entire front has completely stopped. So now the Russians, wherever they decide to go on the offensive, they tend to see success, and much greater success than we've seen, I mean, last month or the month before that. So lots and lots of progress coming up through this region. Expect this little pocket here to close. We just don't have a geolocation for this area yet. Expect also this pocket to the south to close as well. And then if we come over here, we can see that the Ukrainians are even in an even deeper pocket salient on the Kharkov-Luhansk Oblast border. And we do have another update here. If you guys remember, there was the Russian crossing of the Zhibyets River and these reservoirs right here. The Russians have expanded this bridgehead quite considerably, and I would say that they're not probably going to be forced out of this area now with this expansion. Remember, that puts the entire Liman sort of area here into a much worse position, holding the Russians on the Zhibyets River and in Toretsk or Torske would have been the more I would have said more militarily intelligent approach. Instead, they tried to hold like Yampilivka and Terny for a very, very long time. We just saw another tank get destroyed in Yampilivka. It looks like basically hell on earth with Russian artillery just bombarding it constantly. The Russians are now behind this Zhibyets River reservoir area, and they are now only, 9 miles, so 15, 16 kilometers away from Liman, which will allow them to close the Ukrainian presence in the Shubyansky forestry, which will really help this entire area of the front move. So not an area that's being specifically talked about, but an area that could see some massive Russian progress in the very near future. All right. Oh, I forgot to remove the feature comment from the stream. Thank you, guys. All right. Moving down here to Chasiv Yar. Russian forces have advanced through this industrial facility right here, this warehouse facility, and these suburban households to the Dnepropetrovsky reservoir here, which is on the backside of the, they call it, the translation is always weird, so I never know what these plants actually build. They call it like a refractory plant, and then sometimes I see it's a brick plant. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I haven't really looked at it. It doesn't really matter to me. It's not doing that job anymore. It just is a large industrial facility here. And the Ukrainians did counterattack and push the Russians out of here. Now they find themselves sort of in a salient in this region, and I would expect the center of Chasiv Yar here to fall within the coming days and week. And then after the middle of Chasiv Yar falls, the rest of Chasiv Yar, Stepochki, Malakanivka, all of these different places are going to be much, much more difficult to actually retain for the Ukrainians. Remember, there's a lot of Russian pressure right now across the front, and that Russian pressure is starting to add up, and the Ukrainians really don't have the means to defend it, push it back at all. And so we see the Russians moving not in one spot, not in two spots, not in three spots, not in four spots, but across the entire front now. Everything is just beginning to flex and move like it is in southern Pokrovsk. Southern Pokrovsk was really the area where we saw the most Russian progress down here for a long time, Ugledar area, down this entire region right here. But now we're seeing that sort of regular progress across the map and in different areas. So yeah, things are moving fast, and the situation just keeps getting more and more complex. The Ukrainians really need to make some very big strategic decisions right now. I don't think that they're going to come. I don't think that the people who are in charge right now in Ukraine are willing to make any of those decisions, nor do I think that it's even a part of their psyche. I watched the Zelensky and Lex Friedman interview, and it appears to me that Zelensky is going very much down the Hitler-esque route, where it's delusion and self-grandeur. I think that he thinks that he is really the main character in all of this, and that he is doing what he's supposed to do for Ukraine. I think that he has drunk his own Kool-Aid, and it's to the point where I think he's going to have to go. I don't see how negotiations happen. I would be very hesitant to put my faith in anything that involves the Ukrainian government right now. All right. Moving down into the Toretsk area, we have a very wide advance here in Toretsk. The capture of this Terekon, and claims by the Russians that the Ukrainians have basically completely left the Toretsk area, besides potentially this small industrial facility right here, this mine. The Russian sources are claiming basically that Toretsk is now empty, and there's just a cleanup operation in these last couple of areas that are mostly in the gray zone. My map doesn't have gray zone. I think adding gray zones to maps doesn't make a lot of sense, because we don't know as third-party observers where a gray zone is. A gray zone is such a circumstantial thing on the battlefield. So any map that has a gray zone is just kind of a guess. I just put colors, and then I let you guys kind of fill in the gaps on where you think a gray zone is, because my guess is just as good as yours. All right. So Toretsk is all but done. This will open the road to Konstantinivka, putting a lot of pressure on Konstantinivka, and will make Chasiv Yar much more difficult to hold if this supply line in this area right here can be threatened, which is now should be the Russian goal. Cross the canal here, really occupy a lot of the space, and start putting a ton of pressure on Konstantinivka at a time when the Battle of Pokrovsk is about to begin, and stuff like that. And as you see this snowball happen, they're not going to be able to hold cities like Konstantinivka or Pokrovsk or Kupiansk or Seversk. Something is going to break here. That's the position we're getting to, and the Ukrainians are continuing to choose to feed the Kursk salient against my recommendation, but it is what it is. This map did not update properly, I think. I see. So I will be doing this while I talk about this advance right here, because I just did it and I remember exactly where it is. So Russian forces have crossed this sort of water boundary line right here. It's low ground on the map. You can see this river, the Kazani Toretsk River, runs all the way down this direction. There are reservoirs here. This is on a low ground, and you can see that there are a bulk of Ukrainian fortifications, strong Ukrainian fortifications in this region. The Russians have crossed this, captured, not even going to try that one, but more importantly, captured the fortifications that surround it, entered them, and now they are going to work their way towards the ring road. This is going to cut communication from Konstantinivka to Pokrovsk. Not that there is a ton of active transport on this road, but they will lose access to even being able to move up and down it entirely. This will allow the Russians to very quickly branch north to the southern end of Konstantinivka and branch down into the northern end of Minhorod. Reaching that ring road is very pivotal for the Ukrainian, or for the Russians. Holding it is pivotal for the Ukrainians, because after, it's not so important to them to control it, but if the Russians control it, things are going to move a lot faster than they're going to be able to handle. So that is something to definitely look out for here. And I'm going to finish this update here, because the Russian forces have also advanced on this end of the, I don't know why this didn't save. I think it might be in a folder somewhere because this should have saved. But Russian forces have advanced along this ravine right here. You can kind of see it, and have captured the village of Baranivka right here. So this is how the front is looking more or less. I will come in and fine tune this to make sure it makes sense because they're not actually that high. They're down here. But yeah, so more significant advances here than we've seen in a very long time. And remember, this is what I had predicted quite some time ago. The Russians just did not choose to advance here. You can see that they are now working to fill out this area, capturing the ring road and moving along it to Konstantinivka. Again, up in this area, this is where the Ukrainians have the best ability to defend. They have strategic cities of Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Druzhkivka, and Konstantinivka all to supply this front. So supply is rather steady in this area, and it will take the Russians some time to move through this area, barring a complete frontline collapse in the entire eastern region. All right. Moving down from the north of Pokrovsk Minhorod conglomerate now to just to the south, Russian forces have captured the village of Zeleny, crossing the Solonia River right here. Whatever, you guys, it's just a small creek. And capturing this village, again, setting themselves up to advance into southern Pokrovsk when that time comes. Here, just right outside, just north of Peshani, Russian forces have also advanced into Zorove, which is also southwest, I guess you would say, of Pokrovsk, and really what I would consider the beginning of the Battle of Pokrovsk right here. There is now no break between these villages and the city, so this is the greater Pokrovsk area. All right, over to the very, very southwest of Pokrovsk, and if we look at a map now, the Russians are 6 miles, 10 kilometers due west of Pokrovsk, which is making the situation much, much more difficult. Remember, we had this advance out of Vovkove towards Kurlin, and that would probably have cut, Ukrainian access to the TO406 highway right here that leads into Pokrovsk. The main goal is to capture Udachny here, which is a large rail hub, and then advance up into the E50 highway, further choking Pokrovsk and Minhorod off. Once this road is cut by Russian fire, the Battle of Pokrovsk will likely begin from the southern direction. The Russians will launch an offensive to gain a foothold in the southern part and then begin battling their way through the city. We could also see the Russians do their traditional encirclement campaign, but I just think that the Ukrainian positions are now too weak in this area, and an encirclement, by the time an encirclement is complete, there's going to be openings for the Russians to advance. All right. Moving down here to the west of Seladove, Russian forces have advanced into Solone, capturing the entirety of the village. They have also captured the entirety of Novovasilivka here. Remember, guys, the Russians are now getting incredibly close to the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast here, which is less than 7 kilometers away from their current positions. Probably less by now. We just have not got an update in this region yet. And there was just more advances through these fields here. All right, to the south, Russian forces have advanced out of Sontensnivka and Ziora, crossing the Starshani River, and advancing into the small villages of Slovyanka and Petropavlivka, capturing both of them, setting themselves up to advance into this big empty space, although there are fortifications that run along the northern end of Andrivka and Osolivka, so the Russians will still have to work their way through those. However, up here is very bare, so expect the Russians to, again, advance very quickly towards the Dnipropetrovsk region. All right. In the still open, but no longer Kurkove pocket. It used to be the Kurkove pocket, but that has now, the Battle of Kurkove has wrapped up. So Russian forces have advanced up into the waste treatment ponds right here, as well as just a general advance through the fields. The Ukrainians, again, should have left this area forever ago, but what happens when the Russians actually make it to Andrivka is not good for the Ukrainians. The defensive positions here are not good, so they're going to try to hold these fortifications for as long as humanly possible. All right, and that is it, I think, for today's updates in Ukraine itself. Now we will move up to the north and look at the Kursk region. But first, let me go back over to my Steam thing. I have a question here. But Sersky, how will attacking Kursk win the war? Getting the fucking Challenger Maxim. We need to look good for the orange guy. Yeah, I don't know what the plan is. They're wasting a lot of their remaining armor in this very pointless attack. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But nothing the Ukrainians have done for a very long time has made much sense. So, all right, let's look at this. All right, here we go. So the Ukrainian forces are already in a very difficult situation in the Kursk region. As you can see, the only road access they have is this R200 highway, which is under constant drone, artillery, missile barrage, anything you guys can think of. This area is an absolute death zone getting into Zuzda, but the actual opening that they have to operate in is 10 miles or roughly 16 kilometers across. Not that fantastic. And what the Ukrainians decided to do was to stage in the Sumy region. If you go to my Telegram or my Twitter, you can see an Iskander strike on an accumulation of Ukrainian servicemen that were on a fortification in the Sumy region. These are likely men that were being prepared to be sent into the Kursk region. They were struck and killed. A mass casualty event was reported. And many such cases like this have happened in the Sumy region over the last couple of weeks. Strikes on gatherings of equipment and stuff like that. So the Russians very much knew what the Ukrainians were up to. They knew that they were staging. They were carrying out heavy strikes, degrading the Ukrainian attacking force before it even reached the Kursk region. And then on Sunday, we had reports of a new Ukrainian offensive in the direction of Berdin here, where they were able to reach it and then stop. In reality, most of this is a gray zone. I talk about this a lot, how the Kursk region doesn't have super defined lines. So I'm just going to give you guys sort of an example of what this region looks like. And you can, but just use your imagination that this entire area is very blurry around the edge. It's hard to know where the Russians and Ukrainian lines actually are. And this is sort of the zone where this Ukrainian offensive has really taken place. And as you can see, nothing substantial. And I left it in pink to kind of I'm not going to map it for the Ukrainians because the amount of losses they took just to capture this small area was rather immense. You can go look at my Twitter or my Telegram for that combat footage. You will see convoys of Ukrainian armored vehicles being destroyed, fab strikes, lots of FPV, fiber optic FPV drones tearing up Ukrainian defenses. The one thing that it does appear that the Ukrainians did well in this attack was that they utilized electronic warfare very well. Russian drones were having a hard time operating outside of obviously fiber optics. That seems to have been resolved. Russian artillery is working incredibly hard up here, as well as the Russian Air Force. So Ka-52s are operating on this advance and everything. And it really was just sort of a bloodbath. Units from the 82nd, battalion-sized units from the 82nd and the 47th Mechanized Brigades, as well as there was a few other units that were kind of scrapped and pulled together for this, were committed here. They suffered, like I said, pretty serious losses, didn't achieve anything, and the Russians captured 23 Ukrainian fighters in this recent advance. So not not particularly well thought out. I don't know why Ukrainians are so eager to push into a salient and fight for it. Some commentators are saying it's an attempt again to pull Russian troops from the east. The Russians are ready. The Russians saw this coming. I saw it coming. Literally, my tweet on Saturday when we got that video of that Iskander strike was there are reports that the Ukrainians are about to commit to another offensive in this area. And what this appears to me is absolute desperation. It looks like they're trying to hold on to this Kursk region for as long as possible until negotiations happen. Again, I don't know why the Russians would negotiate. I don't know what this imaginary negotiating that they're talking about is. Zelensky has already said that they're not going to negotiate, that they can't. And then the next time he's talking about negotiations. It's very confusing. Doesn't make any sense. Zelensky doesn't make a lot of sense. And like I talked about in his interview with Lex Friedman, it looked like he was first off high on cocaine, which I don't want to be the guy who's like Zelensky's a cokehead or anything. He couldn't sit still. I have ADHD very bad. I cannot sit still. I fidget. I stim all the time. I do stuff like all the time. I'm always tapping my fingers. He looked like he was absolutely wired. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know why you do that before an interview. His Ukrainian was absolutely terrible. He would slip into Russian and curse in Russian a lot. It was very confusing. Didn't understand it. And the upshoot of it all is it looks like he's in his bunker. He's being told everything that he wants to hear. And yeah, not everything, obviously, because he's going to get bad news, but his bias is overwhelming, and the way he was talking, it just makes me think that he is not playing a part. He actually believes that he is somehow like the savior of Ukraine. It's delusional, and it speaks volumes as to why we're seeing what we're seeing on the battlefield. It's truly quite pathetic. And the fact that so many men are just being sent into a slaughter for this absolute clown is saddening. But as is life, so we move on. We progress from there. All right, those are the updates for today on the map. Thank you guys so much for tolerating that for a good amount of time. All right, I have some articles that I want to talk about. If you guys have questions or things that you want me to talk about, go ahead and get that in. I'm going to move over to my first article, and then I will come back and look at some questions. So if you want to know part of why I believe the Ukrainians really did all of this, we go to the articles, and you can really just see how the language is being talked. The media is starving for some good news for Ukraine. They want to make Russia look bad. It's obviously what they're being told to push. And this was the perfect opportunity. And yet you can kind of feel that the vibe is off. They don't really believe what they're saying, and they're leaving a lot of hints in here. So we're going to read some of this. Russia getting what it deserves, Ukraine says after launching a counterattack in border region. So that sounds really good, except when you realize that the Ukrainians got absolutely manhandled. They took a beating. They haven't done anything. And Russia is, quote, getting what it deserves as you're losing more of your country, and Russia is winning more and more. I'm not going to do the mental math there, but it's not adding up. Ukraine has launched a counterattack in the southern Russia border region of Kursk, warning that Russia is getting what it deserves. And this is exactly part of what I was talking about. It really does seem like they're just trying to get their licks in before they can't. And that's so pathetic. That's such a pathetic way to fight a war. That's such a pathetic way to behave as a man, in my personal opinion. But it is that just to say that they're getting what they deserve is just so it makes you seem evil, like vengeful and angry. And while that might be perfectly rational in Ukraine's position, I'm not saying that it's not. To me, this is not the victimhood sort of mentality you want to be pushing when you're looking for more support. Saying Russia is getting what it deserves makes you look like an absolute problem, and it makes Russia's actions seem more and more justified the more you keep opening your mouth. I don't get it. But Andriy Kovalenko, the head of Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation, okay, the Ministry of Truth over here, an official body, said Ukrainian forces had launched a surprise attack against Russian forces in several locations across Kursk, months after launching its incursion into the region. Basically, hey, look at us. We're in Russia. We're still in Russia, and we have the initiative. That's what they're trying to make up here. This is pitiful propaganda. Pitiful, not in the sense of CNN. I mean, it is, but they're just repeating what is being told to them. More so from the Ukrainians making this military decision just for propaganda purposes. In a short Telegram post on Sunday, the head of the Ukrainian presidential office, Andriy Yarmark, said, Kursk region, good news. Russia is getting what it deserves. There you go. That seems to be the Ukrainian method right now. The MO of the Ukrainian government is to just make Russia pay. Very, very odd. And when we start talking like this and you hear this language, this runs deep. This runs into the intelligence services. So get ready for more terrorist attacks inside of Russia. Get ready for all this sort of stuff because Russia is getting what it deserves. Right. All right. I'm going to move over to another article here and just kind of to show you how the propaganda is being circulated. Here we go. Ukraine launches new attack in Kursk region of Western Russia. Now, the Times seems to be a little bit more detracting of the whole thing, but we'll read it. Ukrainian forces assault was in the Russian region where they made a surprise incursion last summer. Ukrainian forces have gone on the offensive in the Kursk region of Russia. Ukrainian and Russian officials said Sunday in an appeal. In what appeared to be an effort to regain the initiative there. Right, ready? That's just the language. In what appeared to be an effort to regain the initiative. That's already not good. Appeared, so didn't succeed, and regain the initiative that you don't have in the region where you made the incursion. It's very bad. There as they struggle to thwart relentless Russian assaults across eastern Ukraine. Ukraine took about 500 square miles last summer in the Kursk region in a surprise incursion, but Russia clawed back about half of the territory in the months that followed. On Sunday, the Russian Defense Ministry said that the Ukrainian forces had launched a large new assault featuring tanks, mine-clearing equipment, and at least a dozen armored vehicles. It's not very much, honestly, if you're trying to actually accomplish something. The ministry claimed to have thwarted the attack. Ukrainian soldiers fighting in the area who were reached by phone. Why do they have phones? Declined to discuss continuing operations beyond saying that Ukraine was on the offensive. Yeah, no shit. In parts of the Kursk region, and that fierce fighting was raging there. The Ukrainian military high command said on Sunday night that there were 42 combat engagements in the region over the past 24 hours, and that 12 were still happening. So it's not possible to verify any of these claims, of course. That's what they say, because they don't have to verify claims. They just repost quotes from people on the front line who are directly connected to the Ukrainian government. But obviously, they would be talking about the success if there was more success. They're not talking about it hardly at all. They're just making sure everybody knows that they have the initiative. Again, just for PR. And this is every single article out right now in mainstream media. New York Times, CNN, Fox, any of the posts. You can go anywhere. This is the only story you'll see. So mission accomplished. Good news for Ukraine. Meanwhile, our population is declining at a rapid rate. And I actually read a post off of Telegram. I can read it to you guys here. And this guy is specifically talking about Ukraine's manpower issues and his frustration with the Kursk offensive. So I'm going to bring this up and we can look at this here. There's one thing I can't figure out. We have 1 million people in the defense forces. We have 1 million people. That is the official government line. We are constantly saying that they say that we are retreating because there are 5 times more Russians, according to statistics. There are 600 to 700,000 of them on the territory of Ukraine. Banal mathematics suggests that there should be more of us. Where are the people? Are these dead people? Which is a very good question. We're wondering. Who understands, who can explain, because that's all I hear from the military leadership. We need more people. So what? Are some of them bribes? it's a good question, right? This is Gonacharnenko, one of the personalities, I guess you would say, in the Ukrainian information space on Telegram. So people are now beginning to ask real questions. What's going on? Where are all of our human resources that you say we have, and why do the Russians have more people in the country when you say we have 1 million people and we don't have enough people, right? The math isn't mathing. Again, this has been the whole issue the entire time. All right. Will the U.S. this is a question. Will the U.S. annex Canada and Greenland? I doubt it. I mean, I don't really know how that works unless they vote on it. But I would say that that's probably the way that the Western Hemisphere, at least the northern continent of the Western Hemisphere, is heading. I think that we will have some reconciliation with Canada and Mexico here very shortly, just as a means of further survival of the U.S. hegemony. And honestly, what are they going to do? And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I just mean over the next 20, 30, 40 years. All right. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and get some questions in. Let's see. Hi from Scandinavia. I have to say we have awful destructive politicians that destroy our countries. Yeah. Europe is really on a hot streak right now of picking the absolute. I mean, picking. You guys don't have democracy. It's all fake. But you guys pick the absolute worst parties to run your countries. It's funny to watch. Just a continuous, groveling and being on your knees for the United States and just going with whatever they want and never thinking about your own interests. It's fantastic. I mean, for you guys, it sucks, but for us over here, it's really good. Congratulations on buying all of our very expensive light natural gas, by the way. Is Sersky working for Russia? Seems to me. No, he's working for Zelensky. Remember, the military leadership is not making decisions. He's a yes man. He's just agreeing with whatever he's being told to do. I'm not saying that Sersky is not blameless in this. I think that he's perfectly comfortable going along with what Zelensky wants. But I would say that there's almost no military leadership at all. There's no military decision making. It's purely political at this point. Thank you for your question. Question. Trump tries to get Russia to the negotiating table. Russia refuses. What does Trump have to use against Russia to come to the table anyway? Well, they're trying to put a ton of economic pressure on Russia right now. Ukraine just refused to renew the gas transit through their country, which is really rough for Ukraine because they're still getting money from that. And it's really rough for Europe, who is struggling with high gas prices in the middle of winter, and Ukraine decides to blackmail Europe with a 5% cut to their energy. Particularly Slovakia and Hungary are going to be the worst hit by this, and Slovakia is actually a large producer of energy that is imported into Ukraine, or exported to Ukraine from Slovakia, and they have threatened to cut that off. So I believe that we will see that, which is going to make Ukraine's energy issues even worse. It's going to make Europe's energy issues even worse because that somebody's going to have to make up for that lost Slovakian energy. But I don't know how he gets them to come to the table. If I was the Russians, unless my economy is about to snap in half, or unless I'm going to get the best deal ever from Trump, I'm not coming to the table. I'm just going to end this the way that I think it's going to end. If Russia enters the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, how will the Ukrainians and their fanboys sugarcoat it? They're just going to say that, see, the Russians were never serious about stopping with their 4 regions. They're going to annex the whole place. This was why we warned you about the whole time. See, Russia evil, Russia evil, Russia evil. Although they will never take into account their own actions and their own refusal to make peace and stuff like that. These ideological people that we're talking about in any situation, but particularly the Ukrainians in this situation, they never self-reflect. I think that this is an attribute of actually the stupidest people on the planet, and it's probably like 60% of the people on the planet, but they have no ability to self-reflect. Something that I attribute to higher intelligence is every time you make a mistake, you take that information and you what would you call it? You internalize it, right? You ask, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? How can I be a better person in this situation? Most people will just not even think about anything but themselves. And it's not even in a totally selfish way. I just don't think people are capable of really self-reflecting and growing and improving after a certain point in their life. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my take on that. Let's see. Question. Did you see the Zelensky claimed to have performed a miracle? Yeah, he put his hand. That's what I said. He's like full of himself. He literally thinks he's Jesus Christ. He put his hand on a Ukrainian soldier in the hospital and he got better. You know what I mean, dude? You know what I mean? Imagine believing that. I mean, I can do it. I've done it a couple of times, but miracles are costly. It takes a lot out of me, so I don't do it often. But could you imagine actually believing that Zelensky could do that? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. A question. Realistically, where can Ukraine stage an offensive that would benefit the war? Nowhere. They don't have the manpower. You're seeing the best of their offensive in the best place that they could possibly do it, and they did it in Kursk. You're seeing it. I said that I was expecting the Ukrainians to go in a different direction, but I don't know where, right? Because any movement is going to be very obvious. There's only a couple regions you could go into in terms of Russia. You could go into Kursk. You could go into, hold on. You could go into Kursk. You could go into, is this whole region Kursk here? Yeah, you could go into Kursk. You could go into Belgorod. That's it. Like, those are the 2 regions you could go into. Oh, I'm sorry, Bryansk. You could go into Bryansk too. That's the one I was looking for. But other than those 3 regions, where are you going to go? And what do those 3 regions offer you strategically? Absolutely nothing, unless you reach a nuclear power plant, which they failed to do the first time. So yeah, I don't really get the point. I think you just hold your lines if you're trying to hold your lines, and the Ukrainians are not even doing that. So Scott, overall positive, negative net for Zelensky interview. I don't think enough people are going to even watch it to care. It's not Joe Rogan. It's just Lex Friedman. I think people have their opinions basically made up on Ukraine, whether he's a thief or a hero or whatever. And I don't think some 2-hour, 3-hour interview, whatever it was, with rambling, bambling, crazy cokehead is going to change anybody's opinion very drastically. I think people are pretty worn out on Ukraine already, or at this point. I mean, completely. If you talk to anybody in the US, at least. Why is Velika Novosilka taking so long to take? Both supply. Why would the Russians take it? Guys, I really hope you can come to this conclusion by yourselves. Why do the Russians want to rush to take this? How does holding this position benefit the Ukrainians at all? You're right. You said it in your own post, right? Both supply roads have been cut for a week at least. So how are the Ukrainians getting supply into this area to hold it? Through this field right here. They're running down this field along this river into the city. The Russians can watch this, bomb it, bomb the Ukrainians that are being forced into this horrible position, and just keep attriting the Ukrainians. Again, territory is unimportant when there is an army standing in your way. In this conflict in particular, fast movement results in high casualties almost exclusively. Like there's almost no options where you can advance quickly or you want to take something very quick when it doesn't offer any benefit to the enemy, right? This is a strong enough position that the Ukrainians want to hold it, but it is completely compromised, right? So why not let them hold it? Hey, why push them out of Kharkov when they are sending Ukrainian troops into this God forbidden salient down here with one supply road that they can watch? You don't. You just keep destroying the army. Just keep destroying it. Why would you push into the Sumy region right here? Why would you push into the Sumy region right here to counter this whole thing? The Russians could have just come down. They control this whole area. They could just come down in here. It would be costly for the Russians because there's a large Ukrainian presence, but they could do it. They could close this road and the Kursk region would be done, right? It would be done in a couple of weeks at the most. Why? When your goal is to attrit the enemy, why would you prevent them from making stupid mistakes? You don't. This is a stupid mistake. It is a continuation of a stupid mistake. Why do you prevent the Ukrainians from coming across the Dnieper River into Krinky? You don't. You eliminate an entire Marine brigade on the bank of a river. Easy as that. You just don't stop your enemy when they're making a mistake. Don't let your ego overtake the important strategic and tactical nature of any engagement, whether that is militarily, whether that is a board game that you're playing, anything. Do not let your ego interfere with your decision making. The Russians are moving too slow. For who? For who? I can promise you that those Russian soldiers would rather have that entire area leveled with artillery, bombed out, have FPVs taking out all the Ukrainians, and then they are more than willing to just sit back for a couple weeks and wait. And once the position is run through and destroyed, then they'll walk in and take it. And then they don't have to do all of the dying, right? The Ukrainians will do the dying, and then when the Ukrainians aren't there, they'll go in and take far fewer casualties. So yeah, there's no need to rush. There's no need to push where pushing isn't required. The Ukrainians are hemorrhaging. They are just hemorrhaging on this huge, expansive front line. Don't change the equation. Wear down the West's mental ability to keep up with this. Wear down their material ability to keep up with this. Already happened. And win the war. Win the war. Win the war. Don't worry about the battles. Focus on the war. Okay. What about going into Belarus as a distraction? Really don't want to do that. You don't want to create a new enemy. That would be like, I mean, that's like, Japan just attacking Pearl Harbor. Not to say that the U.S. wouldn't get involved, but why? Why create an opportunity for a new equation to a new variable to the equation, right? Do you want to deal with an additional, however long this is? Do you want to deal with an additional 350 mile front line while you're losing on the current front line? Hell no. Hell no, you don't want to do that. If you want to just do it to escalate, go for it. But it's not going to make Ukraine look really good. It's going to make Ukraine look like they're lashing out. It's going to make them look, it's going to make them very difficult, kind of radioactive to deal with from the Western standpoint. You just don't go around invading countries unless you're Israel, right? If you're Israel, you can do whatever you want. But if you're other countries, there's some rules. Which Russian units would you say is performing the best? The VDV making a crazy comeback. I mean, they're not. What? I don't understand this. Are you guys just all in on the Ukrainian propaganda from like day one of the war? Like the VDV was completely destroyed. They got into some ambushes. They took some losses in the Kiev region, but they were not wiped out. Hostomel landing was an incredible success, a ballsy success too. I don't get this. You don't use VDV if you don't need to use VDV. You use regulars because they're much less expensive when they die. So VDV is only being used where they need to be used, and that's that. Like I don't get this whole thing. But I would say there's probably some of the units in the East in terms of like their FPV usage and their tactics that are probably probably performing the best. The dying needs to end, like Trump said. Yeah, but he's also talking about striking Iran. So they're just politicians, guys. They're just politicians. They're billionaires. They're sociopaths. They're psychopaths. Don't believe what they say. I don't know how clear that I could try to make that, but they lie for their profession, and that's okay because it's required in their profession. But they're going to lie straight face to you. They've been doing it your entire life. Why is this one guy different? Be a nihilist. It's much easier. You understand the world much more clearly. Question: doesn't Trump have the power to condemn Biden's aid to Ukraine? Doesn't this show he's actually supporting Ukraine indirectly as he's keeping his mouth shut? Exactly. No, nothing's going to change, guys. There's not going to be a negotiation. There's not going to be a settlement. The reason they're talking about that is because they're out of options. And even their settlements that they're talking about are still so pro-US, so pro-Europe, and neglect the basic position that Russia is in. And you can't do that. The West will always negotiate with themselves. You know, the US negotiates with themselves on what's acceptable. Then they go to Europe and they talk about what is acceptable for Europe. And then they go to Ukraine and say, hey, look, we didn't get this and this, but we got this and this. And then they take it to Russia and say, here's the deal. And Russia goes, no. Nope. The U.S. does not often negotiate from positions of weakness either, so I would not expect it. Scott, do you think the war will spread to Europe? Greetings from Germany. Probably not. I don't see any reason for that unless the U.S. literally forces a conflict somewhere else, forces Russia to go further. Russia doesn't even want to be in Ukraine right now. They want Ukraine as a whole state that is their puppet that they can run gas to Europe through. Russia does not want any of this. They did not want Nord Stream destroyed. That was their moneymaker. Nord Stream 2 is now never going to be open. That was going to be a moneymaker, right? They've had to divert a lot of their energy exports to Asia, which is not going to come at as good of a price, but there's more people there. So, you know, it's a huge market that they're tapping into. China needs it. But why would Russia not want to sell to both? Right? That's why they still talk about negotiations. Hey, we want to do business with you. You are our cash cow. You don't have energy resources. We do. You have products that we want, right? Not anymore, but that's how it used to be. So, yeah, no, I don't think the war is coming to Europe. I don't think Putin has any will to do that. I don't think the Russians want that at all. Yeah. Let's see. I don't understand why people care so much about Ukraine, Little Russia, and so much that they destroy their own society and economy. It's not about Ukraine. It's a much wider picture. They would do the same for Israel. They would do the same for Taiwan, probably, because it is the hegemony, right? The hegemony is pushing this direction. And if you're not with us, you're against us, right? That's how it's always been. If you're not with us, we're going to find humanitarian issues in your country, right? Civil rights violations, stuff like that, whatever you want to call it. The U.S. is really good at this. They'll sanction you, they'll destroy your economy, so you're either on board or you're going to get ousted or, you know, messed up in some way. And so it's not so much a choice, right? This is why I'm very anti-US hegemony in its current form. We don't build, we don't inspire, we don't create, we just destroy and threaten and blackmail everywhere we go. And it's good. It works. We stay on top, at least for now. But people are getting tired. Countries are getting tired of it. People are propagandized way too much in all media outlets owned by Zionists, aka Nazis, in different name. Yeah, I mean, if you live in the West, you only my mom doesn't know anything that's going on. She's a voter. She's a part of the economy. The only reason she knows anything is because I tell her anything. Alistair Crook thinks Trump could go big on negotiations. We want to be friends with Russia. No more sanctions, normalized trade. Okay. So this is the one. If he does a complete 180, that might work. But I still think it's too far gone, and I think that the Ukrainians and Europeans aren't going to allow that. So, Scott, do you think the war will? No, I already answered that one. Let's see. The 114th Motor Rifle are pretty good. Yeah, is that a DPR regiment? If it is, that's one of the ones I was thinking about. Will Konstantinivka, Slavyansk, Orikhiv, Kramatorsk, and other cities that are next resulting in a big battle, or more attritioning before it in just encirclements? No, I really don't think you're going to see a battle for these places, Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. I think that these places are going to be the last area that the Ukrainians tuck tail from. I don't think that there is going to be any more big battles for cities like we've seen. Toretsk was probably the last major battle. I think Pokrovsk is going to surprise a lot of people with how fast it happens. Could be wrong. I don't have exact numbers on Ukrainian reserves and stuff, but that's what it seems like to me. All right, guys. I think that is. I'll answer this one. What's going to happen to Transnistria after ever since Ukrainian cut off the gas? Well, they're having rolling blackouts, and it looks like they're trying to put pressure on Russia there as well. So we'll see. It's probably a reason why the Russians are going to have to go that far, honestly. BB owns Trump. Get ready for global war on terror 2.0. Oh yeah, I'm ready. I've been saying we're going to war with Iran for forever. I thought Biden was going to do it a little earlier. He could have very easily. I just don't know if they really want to start that in the transition period. So I think it might be coming a little later, but we'll see. They're already talking about striking Iranian nuclear facilities, and Russia and Iran are about to sign a strategic partnership on the 17th, which includes defense and security agreements. So potentially before that. All right, guys. I am going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching today. This has been episode 127 of the Calibrated live show with your host, me, Scott. Please go check out my recent guest appearance on the Duran. I had a fantastic conversation with them. I will have Brian Berletic on most likely this week, so be on the lookout for that. And I have my late stream on Wednesday. If you want to find more of my work, you can go do so. There is the links to my Twitter and Patreon and my Telegram. So please go follow me there. All of those are free. You will gain access to more content and be up to date with everything happening with the show and everything going on in the world. Thank you guys so much. Be safe. Have a fantastic January 6th. January 6th, if you know what I'm saying. And have a fantastic rest of your evening. Goodbye, guys.